If you don't like Dolby Atmos mixes, you are not alone. A year ago, when mainstream artists were releasing their mixes in Atmos, I was receiving text messages from my friends who would ask me, "Do you really like those Atmos mixes? I think their stereo versions sound better." But at that time, we all were trying to listen to Atmos mixes in the wrong headphones. When I heard Atmos in a Pro Tools session, I realized that we are not using its full potential. Nowadays, if people ask me about Dolby Atmos, I give them this example. Switching from Atmos to stereo sounds to your ears the same as switching from stereo to mono. Would you like to go back to mono? Of course not. There are multiple reasons why people don't like Atmos mixes. One of them is that top artists are already used to their stereo mixes and their record labels as well. So mixing engineers that mix for them Atmos mixes don't have much freedom to experiment, and they have to make Atmos mixes as close as possible to stereo. And so when listeners listen to the Atmos version, they don't get impressed and they don't get the point of Atmos mixing. Another reason is that Atmos doesn't work for every single production. From my experience, it works mostly for songs that have a lot of effects and have a lot of layers of vocals and instruments. And many songs are very static in stereo already, so you can't really do much with them in Atmos. For that reason, I believe that it's going to be actually the independent artists and mixing engineers who are going to establish the new standards for immersive audio, because we don't have limitations, we don't have people above us telling us what to do, and so we have all the freedom to experiment and set up the new standards. I believe that it's going to be our generation setting up standards for immersive audio. And if you want to jump into immersive audio mixing, this is the best time to do it. I also believe that the best possible Atmos can be done from production made specifically for Atmos. Unfortunately, these days we prioritize stereo, so we have to prioritize our stereo mix and make all the decisions for stereo, and the Atmos mix is secondary. But if we were producing specifically for Atmos, we would get much better and more inspiring results. Some professionals say that immersive audio won't last long because there was a time in history when immersive audio was on the market, but only very few people were interested in it. I believe that we live in a completely different era with virtual reality, computer games, with venues developed specifically for immersive audio experience. And we have finally a device like Apple AirPods that absolutely anybody can afford. So once we have the device for listeners that is affordable, we can make immersive audio. Another reason why a lot of immersive audio mixes are not that exciting yet, because people are still experimenting. They're still learning how to mix it better. So a lot of mixes, even by established artists and A-list artists, are not that inspiring. But I can recommend you some artists, for example, like Taylor Swift, Skrillex, Tiesto, and especially the playlist on Apple Music called Atmos Mixes by Steve Genewick is really worth listening to. And of course, another reason is that a lot of listeners try to listen to Atmos mixes in stereo headphones, and they don't know that if you listen on stereo headphones, Apple Music recognizes your device as stereo and they play for you a stereo version. So you don't actually play Atmos version in stereo headphones, you are listening to stereo. And people don't know about that. Unfortunately, it's such a comprehensive and big topic, and people and musicians themselves still have to be educated about. And once we have more clarity on this topic and more education, it's going to be easier for all of us to mix, to produce, and to release music in Atmos. If you are considering starting Dolby Atmos, but you are still not sure and you think you are going to learn it later or when you are about to release an album, I still recommend you to start as early as you can, because Dolby Atmos has a long learning curve. It's not like studying stereo. Imagine that when I started my Dolby Atmos course, they gave us 5 pages of terminology just to start the course. So it's a very broad topic, and it's not something you can learn in 1 week. Of course, you can learn some stuff and do some basics, but you won't be able to understand all the tools and all the formats, and there are so many files that have to be exported, and you have to understand the reason why you have to export those files, and how to change settings for music because they're different from music from film and TV, and I'm gonna talk about that in my future videos. Thank you for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel.